everyone, Alicia Esposito from Demand Gen Report here, and I'm thrilled to have with me Sangram from Terminus joining us. We're going to be talking about some of the latest trends in ABM, some of the challenges that B2B practitioners are facing, and a little bit about our very special event coming up in August. Sangram, thanks so much for taking the time.
Alicia, thank you so much for having me.
So, obviously, you are very immersed in not only B2B, but the ABM phenomenon. It has evolved exponentially. A lot of people are talking about it, embracing it. So I thought it'd be, a very appropriate start to our conversation just to kind of go over what you're seeing in terms of progress made as far as adopting and seeing the benefits of ABM, and maybe even some of the challenges or problems that you think are still present.
Oh, totally. I think when I wrote the very first book on account-based marketing, that was 2016, believe it or not. That was the first time we wrote it and was published by Vajre. And I think at that time, honestly, we had no idea what ABM really is and the size and the magnitude of its impact. It was more of a cool idea. Who wouldn't want to get in from the right people with the right message and not waste money on leads and really focus on the accounts. And it just sounded really good. The whole FlipMyFunnel, all those ideas just sounded really good and the right thing to do. But there wasn't enough depth in it. There wasn't enough operational identity around that. So I think in the last 4 years or 5 years since ABM really became a thing, as you said, I think there's been a lot more stories of like, hey, we tried this and it failed. We tried this and here's what we learned. And I think through the FlipMyFunnel podcast and others, I'm just floored in terms of the number of ideas and number of different ways ABM has taken shape. And we can talk about definitely a few that has completely surprised me.
Yeah, I would love to dig into that because like you noted, I think, sometimes companies have different ways of interpreting ABM or what that looks like for their organization, depending on their audience or, their marketing structures, how their teams collaborate. So I'd love to hear, what examples have kind of rose to the top for you and, any kind of tactical tips or takeaways that others can take from these examples.
Totally. So, as you know, I came from the whole marketing automation world, right? I ran marketing at Pardot. I was with Salesforce before we started Terminus. And I say that is because at that time, lead was all the rage. The more leads you can generate, the whole lead scoring, that was like the thing. And a lot of companies who might be listening to right now, you might actually be right there with all of that. Like, hey, we need to have more leads. We need to have more lead scoring. We need to see more engagement within the leads. But I think with the shift, the trend that has happened is, when was the last time you actually filled up a form and wanted people to call you? I think people have started to figure that out. I'm sorry to the person whose phone number I type every single time when I have to type on the form. It goes somewhere else, never to me. And so people have started to wanting to have more conversations when they're ready, as opposed to fill up a form and go through the ringer that marketing and sales typically report. So people have just become smart. The biggest shift that I have seen is marketers have moved away from being in the acquisition bucket, which has been pretty much what marketing automation has been pushing marketing into, and have moved on to more, let me help sales team to drive more revenue within the deals you're already working on. So pipeline velocity part of it, where people have raised their hand and they said, we want to buy, and you're in a competitive set, and now marketing can give the air cover to all the other decision makers. So I've seen more happening there, where people are trying to see if we can reduce the amount of time it takes to close the deal. And even further, that completely surprised me, was the upsell and cross-sell, because there are tons of organizations today that still have 80% of their business come from 20% of their customers. And for them, it's really important as they're launching new product lines and services that those companies know about them. And until now, they didn't really have any other way. So now I'm seeing a ton of companies literally starting with not demand generation, not even pipeline velocity, but customer marketing and customer expansion deals. And that is, as you can imagine, the cost of acquisition is nothing there because they're already your customers. There's already trust built. So there's more value to be created in it. And so I just feel like marketing automation world put marketers in a demand generation box, and account-based marketing has helped people expand that, or maybe themselves out of that box and are now across the customer journey truly to drive revenue.
Yeah, there's a lot of really fantastic insight there, Sangram. So I'm going to unpack that a little bit. It kind of coincides with, I think, one thing we're seeing as far as, the B2B marketing structure, priorities, pain points, is that marketers are feeling more pressure to prove the value of what they're doing, the content that they're creating, the campaigns that they're creating. So it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong here or feel free to expand, but it seems like this evolution or this tipping point of ABM, this improved collaboration with sales, this focus on cross-sell, upsell, retention versus acquisition, this is kind of allowing them to better make that value connection because it's not just, the focus on, a number of form fills because there's that data problem, as you noted, or, just shooting things out, through social or paid advertising and hoping it sticks. There's a direct line to engaged buyers who know the brand, maybe trust the product, and it's just all about going up from there. Is that, do you think that's kind of the value quotient that, a lot of marketers are struggling or trying to address right now?
Well, I'm going to say something that's going to offend probably every single marketer listening to it right now. I think, and I learned that lesson some time ago, and I've been very vocal about this, which is I truly do believe that the value of marketing is defined by sales. Mm-hmm. And it offends almost every marketer to the core. And it took me 10, 15 years to realize that. It's like, it's not offensive if you really think about it, it's what you're there for. The job of a marketer in any organization is to incrementally or exponentially grow the sales, the business. That's it. I mean, you would not find a single organization in B2B that has a marketing team and no sales team. I mean, it would be really hard to find that. It happens in B2C, but in B2B, that just doesn't happen. You will find tons of organizations that are doing incredibly amazing in 50, 100, 200 million revenue with a sales organization with no marketing. So the point being that marketers' job at the end of the day is to incrementally or exponentially drive the business forward. So if you pull yourself back and say, okay, that's my job, that's what I'm here to do, then this whole conversation becomes more interesting and exciting because now you're saying, I don't need to just bring in net new leads and try to drive like the acquisition bucket. I want to go in all of that stuff. And to your point around engagement and showing the value across the board, oh my goodness, if marketing can go in and imagine walking into a boardroom and saying, hey, we reduced the sales cycle by 1 month. So now we have in 11 months, we're achieving what we can achieve in 12 months. So I'm giving our sales team a month back into their job. That's millions of dollars for a business. Imagine walking into, we have a company called Snowflake that a lot of people have heard about from Daniel Day. His point in ABM is that he's able to go to the sales team and tell them, okay, you want to open up an office in Boston? Great. Let me tell you how many accounts you can go after. Never before has that happened, right? So he's telling sales team, there are only 100 accounts you can go after. So there's no reason why you should hire 10 sales reps. They'll just hire one, and we'll give them air cover. We'll do field marketing. We'll do advertising. We'll do direct mail. We'll do all these things, but there are only 100 accounts you can sell to. So the level of conversation, the depth, like people talking about, we want to have a seat in the boardroom. Well, that was just a pipe dream. But now with data and insights, I think account-based marketing is literally driving you, pulling you into the board meeting as opposed to saying, hey, I want a seat. I want 5 minutes of time there.
Right. So in that depth and context, it seems like it's kind of funneling into the broader business because it's allowing that more intelligent decision-making. It's more strategic rather than, we need X number of dollars to create this campaign because we think our buyers will like it, right? There's a direct tie to an ultimate business outcome, which, it kind of speaks to the need to be more intelligent and strategic with your marketing activities. So I think that makes perfect sense.
Agreed. And one thing that I would love to make sure everybody do recognize in terms of the challenges that we have seen or I've seen, especially listening to them on the podcast and others, is you have to have an organizational buy-in. Mm-hmm. There is no organization I've so far seen super successful without having an organizational buy-in. And what that means really is it's when you bought an email marketing software or a landing page software or maybe a video software, your CEO, your CFO, your CRO didn't give a shit about that. Like, they're fine. Yeah, go do that. That's just the expense, go do that stuff, right? And the metrics coming from then didn't ever make sense. Okay, we have more views on a video, so what, right? Okay, there are more people downloading, so what? So those metrics never went up to the executive level, right? With ABM, we're talking about a completely different set of metrics. You actually can go to your CFO and say, hey, I'm not going to generate 10,000 leads this month. I'm going to generate only 1,000 leads from the right accounts that we want to go after. And that will drive our business forward. That takes a lot of courage. That takes a lot of alignment. That takes a lot of trust. That takes a lot of testing and experimenting and showing value. So I just want to make sure people recognize that it is not, it has, even though the idea has been so easy to everybody to understand, yeah, let's go after the right people at the right accounts. It has been extremely hard for organizations to deploy it because the metrics have completely transformed. It's gone from volume and quantity to quality, and that has had a lot of pain. A lot of people have been discouraged. People felt like it's not working because it's taking a little bit longer because the volumes is not that high. There's not enough dopamine shots for people to have time. So it has. I think that is one of the biggest challenges is how do you get your CEO and executive team aligned on it?
That's great. And, I know this is likely something that, you have tackled before in your content, your podcast, could be something that you dive into during the Flip My Funnel track at B2B SMX. But do you have any teaser tips or recommendations, that our audience can kind of start to chew on, at least to hold them over for a little bit?
Well, one thing that I would say, and someone who wrote the book on ABM,
right,
the very first one, to say that actually that has been a disservice to the entire industry by calling it ABM, because it almost meant that this is for marketers and not for sales. So my number one thing right now that I've been trying to implore a lot on in the last 6 months or so has been this idea of thinking through the team framework. Because you need to have sales and marketing. There's no ABM program ever going to be successful without your sales team fully bought into it, right? So instead of calling it ABM or not, just call it the team framework, like as we want to like to call it, which is target, engage, activate, and measure. So it takes away this whole idea of like marketing is doing and sales is doing. It's like, no, we are one team. We need to come together and figure this thing out. And we're going to figure out who are we going to target. How are we going to engage them? How are we going to activate our sales team? And how are we going to measure success and iterate through that process? So as simple as that, I think words matter. Mm-hmm. Probably know, like I hate calling people prospects. Like, nobody wants to be prospected. So you should call them future customers if you really care about that. So words matter. So I think we are now moving from a phase like, yeah, ABM makes sense. Why wouldn't you do it? To like, how do I do it? And right. I think the team framework is a simple enough way of thinking. We're doing this together. We're in this together.
Yeah, and I love the team framework, and I love the mention of everyone's kind of supporting the much bigger mission now. It's not just about, I'm a content marketer, so of course I'm going to go right to that. But, how many assets you create or how many campaigns you can roll out, how many emails you can send. There's a much larger conversation that everyone contributes to. And I think it really lends itself well, I think, to the theme and the messaging that we're moving forward with for the B2B sales and marketing exchange, which is this better together concept. And obviously Flip My Funnel has a very established brand. People love and respect the event. So would love to hear a little bit about, this next phase for Flip My Funnel, the origins of this type of relationship and, what everyone can expect from the event this year.
One, super excited to partner up with like Demand Gen, the whole thing and Petovitz Group. And I think I'm really looking forward to it. I was looking at the outline of some of the speakers and what they're speaking about to just give people a sneak peek. I mean, this is going to be how to every single session on the Flip My Funnel track is how to X, how to Y. It's like how to build a target list, how to create metrics that your board will appreciate and see value in it, how to get sales and marketing aligned on the common set of nomenclature. So every single session that we're having people speak on is a how-to session, and it's not why ABM or why this needs to be done. So I think it's a big shift in it. And I'm super pumped because we get to do this now with a lot of incredible people in our organization. So I'm pumped to see those sessions come to life.
Excellent, Sangram. We're really excited to have you guys be a part of the event. Again, bring together not only practitioners, but leaders, innovators who, maybe are a few steps ahead, have tried new things, tested new things, maybe failed a little bit and have some lessons learned to share. That's part of the fun, right? Sharing, what we've kind of learned in the process. But any parting words? I know we covered a lot in such a short amount of time. Any parting words, encouragement, advice, things to look forward to that you want the audience to know about?
Well, this is the first, because right before this meeting conversation we're having, I got the printed book. My second book, ABM is B2B,
Excellent.
is coming up. So we'll have copies of the book. The first copies will actually be at the conference. So we're holding on to that until the conference. So the people who attend will be the first people who are going to get copies of the book. And as the title suggests, ABM is B2B. That's the biggest lesson of all lessons that we have learned in this whole process, is that initially ABM was a new idea and a novel. But honestly, I see 2 years, 3 years from now, nobody's going to say ABM. They're going to say, oh, that's just B2B marketing, right? Like, you're going after the right people and engaging them, the whole team framework. It is just doing the right things, what you should do in B2B, regardless of acquisition or pipeline or expansion programs you might be running. So I'm super pumped to share the book and the stories of practitioners who are actually doing it and have been doing it for the last 4 or 5 years.
Love it. Lots to look forward to, Sangram. Thank you so much for taking the time out to share your thoughts on what's happening in the B2B world, the challenges, how to tackle them. Really appreciate the tactical tips and takeaways there. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Alicia, thank you so much for having me.
And thanks everyone out there for watching. Take care.